I always imagined that if I ever found out, it would destroy me, but when his mistress called me, I felt something I didn't expect at all. My name is Amanda, and I had been married to Greg for 7 years when my whole life shifted in the space of a single phone call. We lived in Nashville, in a house we had picked out together, painted together, filled with furniture we had argued about in store aisles and then laughed about afterward. We had a daughter, Emma, who was 4 years old and obsessed with dinosaurs and strawberry ice cream and a stuffed elephant she called Mr. Peanut. From the outside, we looked like a family that had figured it out. From the inside, I had been quietly unraveling for months. It started with small things. A change in Greg's schedule that didn't quite add up. A name that came up once in a conversation and then never again. The way he angled his phone away from me when a message came through, just slightly, just enough. I noticed all of it and I told myself each time that I was being paranoid, that I was reading into things, that this was what happened when you were tired and stressed and running on 4 hours of sleep because your 4-year-old had decided that 3 in the morning was a great time to be awake. But then a friend told me something. Not directly, not in those words, but in the careful way people tell you things they think you already know. She mentioned seeing Greg's car parked outside an apartment complex on the other side of town, on a Saturday morning when he had told me he was at the gym. She mentioned it once, lightly, and then changed the subject, and I sat across from her and nodded and felt something cold settle in my chest. After that I started paying closer attention. Not obsessively, not in the way where you check every receipt and read every message. I didn't do any of that. I just watched. And what I saw was a man who was present in our home but absent from our life. He was there at dinner but not really there. He was there at bedtime when Emma asked him to read to her, but his mind was somewhere else. I could feel it. You can always feel it, even when you can't prove anything and even when part of you is desperately hoping you're wrong. That was where I was when my phone rang on a Friday evening. Greg was out, another late meeting, he had said, and Emma was asleep, and I was sitting on the couch in the quiet house with a cup of tea I had stopped drinking. The number that came up wasn't one I recognized. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was a woman's. Young, I thought, or at least younger than me. She said my name first, which meant she knew who I was. And then she said, "I'm sorry to call you like this. I know this is not something you want to hear. My name is Vanessa, and I've been seeing your husband." I didn't say anything. I just held the phone and waited. And then she said the thing I was not expecting at all. She said, "I'm not calling to hurt you. I'm calling because I need you to know that I love him, and I'm asking you, please, not to take him away from me." I sat there on that couch and I listened to this woman tell me that she had been with my husband for almost a year. That she knew about Emma, that she knew about our house, that she knew about me, and that despite knowing all of it, she had convinced herself that what she and Greg had was real and that I was somehow the obstacle standing between them and a life together. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cruel. She was, as far as I could tell, completely sincere. And that somehow made it worse. I let her finish. And when she was done, I said, "Thank you for telling me." And I hung up. I sat in that quiet house for a long time after that. Emma was asleep upstairs. The tea had gone completely cold. And I felt, and this was the thing I hadn't expected, I felt calm. Not numb, not in shock, not broken. Calm. Like something that had been pressing against me for months had finally been named, and naming it had taken away some of its power. Greg came home around 11 that night. I heard his key in the lock, heard him set his bag down in the hallway, heard the small sounds of him moving through the house the way I had heard them thousands of times before. He came into the living room and saw me sitting there with the lights low and he said, "Hey, you're still up." I said, "Vanessa called me tonight." The silence that followed lasted maybe 3 seconds. But in those 3 seconds I watched something move across his face, a quick sequence of things, none of them good, and then he sat down in the chair across from me and said, "Amanda, listen to me." And I did listen. I listened for almost an hour while he talked. He told me it wasn't what I thought, which was the first lie. He told me it had only happened a few times, which was the second. He told me it was already over, that he had ended it, that Vanessa was unstable and had called me out of spite. He told me he loved me, that he had always loved me, that I was the only person he had ever truly wanted. He said all of it looking directly at me, in the voice I had known for 10 years, and I sat across from him and I listened to every word. And I knew he was lying. Not because I could prove each specific thing in the moment, but because I had just spent an hour on the phone with a woman who was not unstable and who had not called me out of spite. She had called me because she genuinely believed she was in love with my husband and genuinely believed I was the reason they couldn't be together. That wasn't the behavior of a woman Greg had seen a few times and already ended things with. That was the behavior of someone who had been told something very different. When he finished, I said, "I believe you love me in the way you're capable of loving someone. But that's not enough anymore." He started to say something else and I held up my hand and said, "I don't want to keep talking tonight. Emma's upstairs and I need to think." He slept in the guest room that night. I lay in our bed in the dark and looked at the ceiling and thought about a lot of things. I thought about the last 7 years. I thought about Emma asleep down the hall with Mr. Peanut tucked under her arm. I thought about my friend carefully not looking at me when she told me about the car parked outside that apartment complex. I thought about all the small moments I had dismissed and explained away and talked myself out of, and I understood that I had known, for a long time, and that I had chosen not to know because not knowing felt safer. By morning I was clear. Not angry, not devastated, clear. Like a decision that had been waiting for me to catch up to it. I called a lawyer that week. Not dramatically, not in a rush, I just called, had a conversation, understood what the process looked like. I sorted out in my head what mattered and what didn't. The house could be dealt with. The finances could be dealt with. Emma was 4 and resilient and so deeply loved by both of us that I had no doubt she would be okay, even if the shape of our family changed. What I was not willing to deal with any longer was the slow, quiet erosion of trusting my own instincts. That part was non-negotiable. Greg tried, in the weeks that followed. He was home more. He put his phone face up on the table. He suggested counseling, twice. I went once, because I wanted to be fair, because I wanted to be able to say I had tried every door. And sitting in that room I knew, clearly and without drama, that there was no version of this I wanted to stay for. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I had started loving myself more than I feared being alone. The divorce paperwork came on a Thursday morning. I signed it at the kitchen table while Emma ate toast across from me and talked about dinosaurs. I signed every page carefully, and when I was done I stacked the pages neatly and put them in the envelope and set it by my bag. Then I took out my phone and I typed a message to Vanessa. I had thought about what to say for a while, and in the end I kept it simple. I wrote, "I'm not standing in anyone's way anymore. I wish you well. Please don't contact me again." I sent it and put my phone down and didn't wait to see if she replied. Emma finished her toast and asked if we could go to the park. I said yes. I grabbed my bag, dropped the envelope in the mailbox on the way out, and we stopped at the little ice cream place 2 blocks from the park because Emma asked and because I wanted one too. I got a scoop of salted caramel in a cup and we walked through the park in the late morning sunshine and Emma ran ahead of me on the path the way 4-year-olds do, arms out, completely unbothered by everything except the ducks near the pond. And I walked behind her, ice cream in hand, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Light. Just genuinely, quietly light.